The story begins on the frost-bitten fields of Europe, where the roar of engines, the smell of burnt metal, and the deafening echo of artillery created a living nightmare for tank crews. And it was here that one gunner would perform a feat so audacious it seemed impossible, transforming the humble M4 Sherman, a tank often dismissed by veteran German crews as underpowered, under-armored, and incapable of confronting the fearsome Tiger tanks, into a weapon that struck terror into even the most seasoned enemy. A transformation born not from superior machinery but from ingenuity, skill, and a willingness to exploit the limits of both man and machine. And it all began with a desperate understanding that conventional tactics would not suffice. That brute force alone could not overcome the Tiger's armor and firepower, and that survival, victory, and reputation depended on creativity, audacity, and precision. A revelation that turned every engagement into a chess match played under fire, where one wrong move could result in death, capture, or destruction. And yet the gunner discovered that subtle manipulations, changes in angle, positioning, timing, and ammunition selection could allow the Sherman to strike where the Tiger was vulnerable, hitting weak spots that had been previously underestimated or ignored, a method that required absolute mastery of turret rotation, gun stabilization, terrain utilization, and situational awareness, as the gunner had to account for slope, distance, angle of impact, and the movement of both his own tank and the enemy, all while dodging incoming rounds, artillery shells, mines, and the unpredictable chaos of battle. A combination of precision, courage, and lightning-fast calculation that elevated ordinary tank combat into a nearly cinematic display of tactical genius. In those first moments when the gunner tested the trick in the heat of combat, the effect was both immediate and terrifying. The once feared Tiger tanks, symbols of German armored supremacy, suddenly became vulnerable. Their thick armor penetrated in unexpected ways, forcing enemy crews to reconsider their confidence and tactics as the M4 Sherman, previously dismissed as a lumbering tin can, demonstrated the capacity to deliver lethal, precise strikes against machines thought invincible, a feat that reverberated across the battlefield, instilling fear in enemy ranks, bolstering morale among Allied crews, and fundamentally altering perceptions of what the Sherman could achieve when operated by a mind capable of seeing angles, physics, and timing in ways conventional doctrine did not anticipate. The gunner's technique involved intricate understanding of ammunition types, firing arcs, and target prioritization, as well as an almost preternatural sense of distance and velocity, allowing him to aim for vulnerabilities in side skirts, lower glacis plates, turret ring gaps, and engine compartments, exploiting design flaws that even the engineers who built the Tiger had not fully accounted for under combat conditions. A meticulous approach that demanded patience under fire, impeccable timing, and nerves of steel, because hesitation, miscalculation, or delay could result in catastrophic retaliation. Yet each successful shot reinforced the method's efficacy, teaching crews that the combination of mechanical knowledge, situational awareness, and daring could allow them to overcome technological inferiority and, in doing so, establish a psychological edge over opponents who had assumed superiority based solely on armor thickness, gun caliber, or battlefield reputation. As the gunner refined the trick, he incorporated elements of terrain and movement into his strategy, learning to use hills, ridges, buildings, forests, and even rubble to create firing angles that maximized penetration and minimized exposure, turning every engagement into a study in geometry, physics, and battlefield psychology, while simultaneously teaching fellow crews to coordinate maneuvers, cover flanks, and exploit distractions, ensuring that the Sherman's full potential could be realized not in isolation, but as part of a cohesive, adaptive unit capable of confronting Tigers and other heavily armored threats. A revolutionary approach that combined improvisation with structured methodology, turning what began as a desperate improvisation into a tactical doctrine that could be replicated, taught, and perfected across the armored divisions, extending the effectiveness of American tanks far beyond what their specifications might suggest. Mechanics and engineers, observing the gunner's results, documented the strains placed on the Sherman's suspension, turret drive, and gun assembly, modifying maintenance protocols, ammunition handling, and firing procedures to support repeated execution of the trick without mechanical failure, creating a feedback loop where human ingenuity informed technical adjustments, and mechanical reliability enabled further tactical experimentation, a synthesis of skill, observation, and adaptation that ensured both survival and operational success under conditions of extreme danger. The psychological impact of the gunner's trick was profound, as it transformed the perception of the Sherman within both Allied and Axis forces. To the Americans, it became a symbol of cleverness, audacity, and adaptability, inspiring crews to push their own limits. To the Germans, it became a source of dread, as Tiger crews realized that their supposedly invincible armor could be defeated by clever angles, patience, and calculated fire, forcing them to reconsider engagement tactics, exposure, and positioning, a shift that subtly but decisively influenced armored warfare on both tactical and strategic levels. Stories from the battlefield describe the uncanny precision with which the gunner executed shots, the timing of turret rotation, the use of natural cover, and the ability to predict enemy maneuvers, transforming the Sherman into a predator rather than prey, turning ambushes into orchestrated strikes, and demonstrating that intelligence, observation, and daring could triumph over raw power and size. A narrative of skill overcoming material disadvantage that resonated across the theater of war, creating suspenseful cinematic moments in which a single gunner could turn the tide of an engagement, save entire units, and establish dominance over previously feared adversaries. The culmination of these techniques created a ripple effect across armored units. Commanders adjusted strategy to leverage these newfound capabilities. Training programs incorporated the principles discovered by the gunner, and operational planning began to account for the Sherman's unexpected lethality, effectively multiplying its impact on both offensive and defensive operations, and proving that innovation at the individual level could transform outcomes at the strategic level, a lesson that would endure far beyond any single battle or campaign, embedding the gunner's ingenuity into the doctrine of armored warfare, and leaving a story of suspense, tension, and triumph that continues to captivate, inspire, and educate, as audiences witness the transformation of an underdog tank into a machine capable of defeating the most feared opponent on the battlefield through a combination of daring, intellect, and nearly impossible ingenuity. Ultimately, the impossible trick became more than a tactical maneuver. It became a symbol of courage, creativity, and the human capacity to redefine the limits of machinery under extreme conditions, proving that when skill, observation, and audacity converge, even the most formidable adversary can be overcome, leaving behind a cinematic, suspense-filled narrative that chronicles the terror, ingenuity, and triumph of the men who dared to turn the humble M4 Sherman into a tiger-killing legend, a story of strategy, danger, and victory that resonates far beyond the battlefield, teaching viewers that innovation, courage, and precision can transform the impossible into reality. A lesson captured in every thunderous shot, every calculated movement, and every life-altering decision made in the heat of armored warfare. As the war raged on, the gunner's daring, impossible trick evolved into a disciplined method, a technique that combined observation, split-second timing, and a deep understanding of both the Sherman's capabilities and the vulnerabilities of the Tiger. And it was during these intense campaigns that crews began to realize that victory no longer depended solely on raw firepower or armor thickness, but on intelligence, cunning, and the ability to exploit physics, terrain, and human error in the enemy. A revelation that transformed the way tank battles were fought and the perception of the Sherman across every theater where it operated. And it all began with the understanding that angle, velocity, and positioning could compensate for deficiencies in armor penetration, allowing a Sherman to strike critical points on the Tiger, such as the side armor, turret ring, or engine compartment, that were previously considered untouchable, a process that demanded extreme precision, patience under fire, and the ability to anticipate enemy movement while simultaneously accounting for the terrain, weather, and even the psychological state of the opposing crew, turning each engagement into a tense, almost cinematic duel of strategy, nerve, and skill. The gunner's technique required not just knowledge of the tank's gun, ammunition, and targeting systems, but also the ability to read the battlefield in real time, noting the slope of hills, the angle of sun and shadow, the distance between vehicles, and the slightest cues of enemy intention, because every second of delay or miscalculation could result in devastating retaliation, loss of life, or destruction of the vehicle. Yet as each successful shot demonstrated the method's efficacy, crews learned that disciplined observation and tactical creativity could level the playing field against a technically superior opponent, allowing American forces to survive encounters that previously would have seemed hopeless, and gradually inspiring confidence, precision, and a culture of calculated risk-taking among tank crews who came to understand that survival depended as much on brains and intuition as on ammunition and armor. Mechanics and engineers contributed to the refinement of the method, observing the stresses placed on the Sherman during these precision engagements, adjusting suspension, turret rotation mechanisms, gun stabilization, and ammunition handling procedures to ensure reliability under extreme conditions, documenting lessons learned, and providing technical feedback that allowed crews to execute the trick repeatedly without mechanical failure, effectively creating a loop where human ingenuity informed mechanical adaptation and vice versa, a synergy that amplified the Sherman's combat effectiveness and enabled the gunner's impossible trick to be applied consistently across units, further cementing its place in operational doctrine. Over time, the technique incorporated advanced tactical considerations, choosing ambush positions where terrain masked the Sherman's approach, using smoke, debris, and environmental obstacles to obscure movement, and coordinating with other tanks and infantry to create layered attacks that maximized the opportunity to strike the Tiger's vulnerabilities while minimizing exposure to return fire, a method that transformed each tank engagement into a carefully choreographed sequence of observation, calculation, and decisive action, a lethal ballet of mechanics and human skill executed under the relentless pressure of live combat, and one that elevated ordinary crews into tactical virtuosos capable of achieving extraordinary outcomes in the face of overwhelming odds. The psychological dimension of the trick was equally powerful, as it instilled confidence in American crews, while simultaneously undermining German morale, turning the Sherman from an underestimated vehicle into a fearsome adversary in the eyes of enemy tankers, whose belief in the Tiger's invincibility was shattered by repeated, precise strikes from angles they had never considered, a transformation that altered the dynamics of armored engagements, forcing Germans to adapt, hesitate, and sometimes withdraw, effectively shifting battlefield momentum and demonstrating that tactical ingenuity could overcome numerical or technological superiority. A lesson that resonated beyond individual encounters and informed broader strategic planning, highlighting the importance of adaptive thinking, creative application of available resources, and the audacity to challenge assumptions in warfare. The human element remained at the center of every successful engagement, as the gunner coordinated with the driver, loader, commander, and radio operator to synchronize movements, adjust firing angles, and track multiple threats simultaneously, ensuring that each shot was optimized for maximum effect, while remaining mindful of crew safety and mission objectives, and in doing so, turning the Sherman into a precision instrument of tactical dominance rather than merely a mobile weapons platform. A transformation achieved not through modifications to armor or armament alone, but through the disciplined integration of observation, timing, and creative application of machine capability under extreme stress. Accounts from the battlefield illustrate the dramatic effect of the gunner's method. Tigers, once considered invincible, falling victim to carefully aimed shots that exploited weaknesses in armor and mechanical design, enemy crews panicking as the Sherman seemingly appeared from unexpected positions, utilizing terrain, camouflage, and timing to gain advantage, and American crews feeling the surge of confidence, adrenaline, and satisfaction as they executed maneuvers that combined technical mastery with bold improvisation, each engagement reinforcing the method's effectiveness, building trust among crews, and creating a narrative of suspense, triumph and almost cinematic tension that resonated far beyond individual battles, inspiring other units to study, replicate, and perfect the technique, thereby spreading its impact across the theater. Strategically, the trick allowed Sherman units to achieve disproportionate results. Heavier losses inflicted on Tigers reduced attrition for American forces, and the ability to hold or contest critical areas previously dominated by superior enemy armor, forcing a reconsideration of tactical doctrine on both sides, while proving that innovation and skill could redefine the battlefield, and that the Sherman, far from being an inferior tank, could serve as a platform for tactical brilliance capable of rewriting conventional expectations of armored warfare. Ultimately, this point of the narrative illustrates that the combination of mechanical understanding, battlefield observation, tactical daring, and psychological insight allowed one gunner to transform the capabilities of the M4 Sherman, turning it into a machine that could confront and defeat what had once been considered impossible, leaving a lasting legacy in both military history and the lore of armored combat. A story of ingenuity, courage, and precision that demonstrates that even in the most overwhelming circumstances, the right mind, applied skillfully, can change the rules of engagement, redefine fear, and turn the underdog into a legend, creating suspense, drama, and awe that captivates audiences and ensures that the story of the Sherman's transformation into a tiger killer continues to inspire and enthrall viewers, preserving the cinematic, pulse-pounding narrative of danger, strategy, and triumph that is at the heart of this remarkable feat. By the time the gunner's technique had matured, the M4 Sherman was no longer the underdog tank feared for its weaknesses, but had become a precision weapon capable of challenging the most formidable German armor. And it was during this phase of combat that the full genius and audacity of the method was revealed, as crews learned to exploit not only the mechanical capabilities of their tanks, but also the predictable behavior, overconfidence, and patterns of the enemy, transforming each battlefield encounter into a complex interplay of observation, timing, and tactical decision-making, where every second counted, every movement was critical, and each shot could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. And it was here, amid the deafening roar of artillery and the smoke-choked air of European battlefields, that the gunner's impossible trick became legendary. As Shermans maneuvered into positions that seemed implausible, exploiting cover, reverse slopes, and terrain masking to strike Tigers in their weakest zones, while remaining virtually untouchable and in doing so, forcing enemy crews to reassess their assumptions about armor, firepower, and battlefield dominance, a psychological shift as significant as the tactical advantage itself. The technique demanded absolute mastery of every component of the Sherman, including turret rotation speed, gun stabilization under recoil, ammunition selection, and the precise calculation of distance, elevation, and armor thickness, as well as the integration of real-time observations regarding enemy movement, terrain contours, and environmental factors, creating a cognitive load on the crew that was immense, yet perfectly executed when trained and coordinated, transforming a conventional tank into a sniper of armored warfare, capable of delivering pinpoint destruction at moments that seemed almost impossible to predict or replicate, a testament to the power of ingenuity, adaptability, and relentless practice under fire. What set this method apart from conventional tank tactics was its reliance on subtlety, anticipation, and calculated risk rather than sheer force, and it required crews to adopt a mindset of continuous assessment, constantly reevaluating the positioning of enemy Tigers, predicting their trajectory, and adjusting for variables such as gun elevation, turret swing, hull angle, and distance, often while under fire. With engines humming, tracks grinding over uneven terrain, and enemy rounds tearing the air around them, a complex ballet of mechanics, physics, and human intuition that elevated ordinary tank combat into a high-stakes game of strategy, nerve, and almost cinematic suspense, where skill, daring, and split-second calculation could overcome numerical or technological inferiority and redefine the outcome of entire engagements. As these engagements intensified, crews began coordinating their maneuvers, learning to synchronize movements, suppress enemy attention, and use one Sherman as a decoy while another executed the critical strike, a layered approach that multiplied the effectiveness of the gunner's trick, enabling units to inflict heavy damage on superior enemy armor while minimizing their own losses. A combination of ingenuity, discipline, and tactical evolution that transformed the Sherman's role on the battlefield, proving that innovation at the individual level could scale to impact entire operations, and that even a tank originally considered inferior could dominate through strategy, coordination, and precision execution. Mechanics and engineers played a pivotal role during this period, analyzing wear patterns on the Sherman's turret drive, suspension, gun assembly, and ammunition feed system, adjusting maintenance protocols and recommending enhancements that supported repeated use of the trick without mechanical failure, creating a system where human skill and mechanical reliability reinforced one another, allowing crews to execute high-risk maneuvers with confidence, and providing the foundation for training future tankers in the method, ensuring that the impossible could be replicated consistently across armored units, and that the strategic impact of the technique could be fully realized in both offensive and defensive operations. The psychological impact on both American and German crews was profound. For U.S. tankers, confidence grew as they witnessed the results of precise, well-coordinated strikes, reinforcing the belief that skill, observation, and courage could overcome technical inferiority. For German crews, the shock of repeated Shermans defeating Tigers through clever positioning, accurate fire, and terrain exploitation instilled fear, confusion, and a reevaluation of previously held doctrines, undermining morale, creating hesitation, and providing a tangible advantage for American forces, a testament to how individual ingenuity could create disproportionate effects on the broader theater of war. Battlefield accounts from this period are filled with cinematic moments of suspense and tension, Shermans appearing from unexpected angles, Tigers caught off guard by precise shots to weak spots, crews calculating trajectories while under fire, and the deafening chaos of battle contrasting with the surgical precision of the gunner's method, a narrative that blends drama, danger, and tactical brilliance, capturing the imagination of anyone who witnesses the feat, and reinforcing the lesson that preparation, observation, and daring can redefine the limits of a machine under extreme conditions, turning fear into opportunity and transforming disadvantage into advantage. Strategic implications were equally significant. The gunner's method allowed Sherman units to engage heavier armor with confidence, maximize the impact of limited resources, and achieve operational goals that previously required numerical superiority or support from multiple combined arms units, effectively shifting the balance in engagements where raw firepower had once dominated, and demonstrating that tactical innovation, intelligence, and careful application of physics could compensate for and even surpass material deficiencies, leaving an enduring lesson in armored warfare strategy and battlefield adaptation. Ultimately, the third point of this story illustrates how a single gunner's ingenuity, combined with disciplined execution, coordination, and an intimate understanding of both enemy and machine, transformed the M4 Sherman from a battlefield underdog into a lethal, precision instrument capable of defeating the most feared German armor, creating suspenseful, cinematic, and instructive moments that resonate with viewers, encapsulating a tale of courage, intellect, and innovation that transcends individual battles and becomes a lasting testament to the power of human ingenuity in shaping the course of war. A story that captures tension, heroism, and triumph, and ensures that the Sherman's legendary transformation into a tiger killer will remain a centerpiece of armored warfare history and the imagination of all who witness its dramatic narrative. As the gunner's impossible trick gained notoriety across the European theaters, the full implications of his ingenuity began to reshape armored combat doctrine, transforming the way Shermans were deployed, coordinated, and maintained, and it was during these critical months that American tank crews realized the power of precision, patience, and observation over brute force. As the Sherman, previously underestimated by both Allied and Axis forces, was elevated into a lethal platform capable of confronting and defeating the most formidable German armor, with crews learning to manipulate angles of attack, terrain, timing, and ammunition selection to exploit weak points in Tiger tanks that had once seemed impenetrable, a process that required exceptional coordination among driver, loader, commander, and gunner, as well as the ability to read the battlefield, predict enemy movement, and adjust tactics on the fly, often while under fire, while balancing the psychological pressures of life and death decision-making, the constant roar of combat, and the necessity to maintain unit cohesion. And it was in these moments, amid smoke-choked fields, shattered villages, and the thunder of artillery, that the Sherman proved itself not merely a machine of war, but a vehicle transformed by human ingenuity, turning calculated risk into tactical advantage, improvisation into replicable strategy, and the audacious creativity of a single gunner into an operational revolution that would ripple across entire divisions. The method involved precise understanding of both enemy and ally capabilities, as crews coordinated attacks, timed suppression fire, and exploited terrain features such as ridges, forests, rivers, and ruins to maximize firing advantage while minimizing exposure, allowing the Sherman to engage Tigers at optimal angles where armor was weakest, such as side and rear plates, turret ring gaps, and engine compartments, and by doing so, turning engagements into contests of skill, anticipation, and daring rather than pure firepower. A shift that required crews to develop heightened situational awareness, an intimate understanding of physics, and an almost instinctive feel for timing and trajectory, as the margin for error was razor-thin and the consequences of miscalculation often fatal. Yet with each success, confidence and cohesion among crews increased, creating a culture of adaptive innovation where tactical ingenuity could compensate for material limitations, and where the Sherman, long considered a second-rate tank, was now a machine of precision, surprise, and deadly effectiveness. Mechanics and engineers played a critical role in institutionalizing the gunner's methods, meticulously analyzing the stresses on turrets, gun stabilizers, suspension systems, and ammunition feed mechanisms under repeated high-stress engagements, developing maintenance schedules and modifications that allowed tanks to reliably perform the trick under the harshest conditions, while documenting procedures to teach new crews, creating a synergy between human skill, mechanical reliability, and tactical methodology that ensured the effectiveness of the technique could be replicated, scaled, and integrated into broader operational planning, transforming what had been an individual innovation into a cornerstone of armored doctrine, a system where ingenuity, preparation, and disciplined execution amplified battlefield performance and survivability. Over time, the technique expanded beyond individual engagements to influence entire strategic campaigns, as commanders leveraged the Sherman's newfound effectiveness to plan ambushes, execute flanking maneuvers, and coordinate multi-unit attacks that exploited Tiger vulnerabilities, creating operational leverage that extended beyond raw numbers and firepower, allowing smaller, more mobile Sherman units to achieve disproportionate results against superior enemy forces, and forcing German commanders to reconsider deployment, positioning, and engagement tactics in response to a threat they had once dismissed, a psychological and tactical shift that emphasized adaptability, observation, and cunning over mechanical superiority, and reinforced the idea that human ingenuity could transform the battlefield even when equipment appeared inferior. The psychological dimension of these missions cannot be overstated, as crews endured high-intensity combat while applying the trick, requiring focus, composure, and confidence under extreme stress, reading subtle environmental cues, analyzing enemy movement patterns, and executing split-second decisions that determined life or death, while simultaneously maintaining communication and coordination with supporting units, illustrating how the fusion of human skill, mechanical understanding, and battlefield awareness could create extraordinary outcomes, a narrative of tension, suspense, and ingenuity that elevates the Sherman from a simple armored vehicle into a tool of strategic innovation and psychological warfare, reshaping perceptions of what was possible in armored engagements, and inspiring both American crews and audiences with a cinematic story of courage, creativity, and calculated risk. Battlefield accounts describe moments of almost surreal suspense, as Shermans appeared from concealed positions, executed perfectly timed strikes against heavily armored tigers, and withdrew without damage, creating a rhythm of anticipation, action, and triumph. Where each maneuver showcased the gunner's insight, each shot demonstrated tactical mastery, and every survival reinforced the viability of the method, producing both awe and fear, and illustrating that the seemingly impossible could be accomplished when skill, intelligence, and daring intersected, a lesson that reverberated across theaters, units, and generations of tankers. Strategically, the trick allowed American forces to maximize efficiency, minimize losses, and achieve critical objectives that had previously seemed out of reach, turning what was once a tool of conventional engagement into an instrument of asymmetric advantage, demonstrating that underdog technology, when paired with ingenuity, could challenge and overcome technically superior opponents, and embedding a lesson of innovation, observation, and courage into the operational doctrine of armored warfare, a story that combines suspense, technical mastery, and dramatic narrative into a compelling lesson of human capability under extreme conditions. Ultimately, the fourth point of this narrative underscores how a single gunner's creativity, disciplined execution, and tactical foresight transformed the Sherman into a tiger-killing legend, reshaping both battlefield outcomes and strategic thinking, providing suspenseful cinematic storytelling for audiences, and cementing the lesson that precision, intelligence, and courage can turn the seemingly impossible into reality, a message that resonates in history, military innovation, and the thrilling pulse of armored warfare drama, creating an unforgettable account of ingenuity, risk, and triumph under fire, and leaving viewers captivated by the cinematic, suspense-filled journey of the Sherman's rise from underestimated machine to battlefield predator. As the Sherman crews became more adept at executing the gunner's impossible trick, the scale of their impact on the battlefield expanded exponentially, transforming not only individual engagements but entire campaigns. And it was during these intense encounters that the fusion of human ingenuity, mechanical mastery, and tactical precision became most apparent. As tanks moved with coordinated fluidity, drivers positioned vehicles to optimize firing angles. Gunners calculated trajectories with almost supernatural accuracy, and commanders orchestrated maneuvers that capitalized on the enemy's predictable responses, creating a ballet of war where each Sherman operated as both hunter and shield, exploiting vulnerabilities in the formidable Tiger tanks while minimizing exposure to counterattack, and in doing so, rewriting the conventional expectations of armored warfare, demonstrating that even a tank previously considered inferior could dominate through skill, timing, and observation, a revelation that sent shockwaves through both Allied and Axis forces, reshaping morale, strategy, and perception. The trick required an almost obsessive attention to detail, with crews analyzing every facet of combat conditions, from terrain gradients, ground composition, and weather patterns to enemy behavior, armor layout, and firepower, and integrating these variables into split-second decisions that determined the success or failure of each engagement. A cognitive and physical feat that demanded discipline, coordination, and nerves of steel, as even the slightest miscalculation could result in catastrophic consequences. Yet with each successful strike, confidence, cohesion, and tactical audacity grew, reinforcing the method's legitimacy and inspiring other crews to adopt and refine the technique, thereby multiplying its impact across theaters, units, and battles, and proving that ingenuity could overcome material disadvantage. Mechanics and engineers played a vital role during this period, meticulously monitoring the Sherman's performance under extreme stress, evaluating turret drive, suspension integrity, gun stabilization, and ammunition feed systems, and instituting maintenance and adjustment protocols to ensure reliability during repeated execution of the trick, creating a feedback loop where human skill informed mechanical adaptation, and mechanical reliability enabled further tactical refinement, ensuring that the method could be replicated consistently across units without compromising safety or effectiveness, and allowing commanders to plan operations that leveraged the Sherman's newfound precision and lethality, effectively transforming an individual innovation into a scalable, doctrinally significant capability. Psychologically, the trick had a profound effect on crews and enemy alike. For American tankers, Confidence soared as they witnessed Shermans successfully engaging tigers with pinpoint accuracy, reinforcing the belief that careful observation, timing, and skill could overcome raw power. For German crews, repeated vulnerability of their once invincible armor shattered confidence, instilled fear, and forced tactical reevaluation, altering engagement decisions and creating hesitation on the battlefield. A subtle yet decisive form of psychological warfare, and a demonstration that tactical innovation could yield disproportionate strategic and operational advantages, reshaping the dynamics of armored combat. Battlefield accounts from this phase describe cinematic, edge-of-your-seat moments of suspense and tension. Shermans appearing from concealed positions, executing perfectly timed strikes on weak points, enemy tigers caught off guard, crews calculating trajectories while under fire, smoke, dust, and the thunder of artillery combining into a visceral sensory tableau. As each maneuver highlighted the gunner's ingenuity, each shot displayed tactical brilliance, and every successful withdrawal reinforced the method's efficacy, creating a narrative that blends drama, danger, and ingenuity. A story that resonates with viewers by capturing both the thrill of action and the intellectual mastery required to execute it. Strategically, the method allowed American forces to engage superior enemy armor with confidence, maximize operational efficiency, minimize losses, and achieve objectives that previously required numerical or combined arms superiority, demonstrating that intelligence, observation, and creative application of available technology could redefine the battlefield, allowing units to accomplish missions thought impossible and establishing the Sherman as more than just a vehicle, but a symbol of tactical ingenuity, audacity, and adaptive warfare. A lesson that influenced not only immediate campaigns, but also long-term doctrine and the way armored warfare was conceptualized and executed. Human skill remained at the center of each operation, as gunners, drivers, loaders, and commanders coordinated to synchronize movement, anticipate enemy reactions, adjust for terrain and environmental factors, and execute strikes with split-second precision, turning each Sherman into a mobile, adaptable, and lethal instrument capable of reshaping engagements, forcing adversaries to contend with unexpected variables, and demonstrating that tactical mastery could transform perceived weakness into strategic advantage. A narrative of suspense, courage, and precision that captivates audiences and underscores the lesson that preparation, skill, and creativity can elevate ordinary tools into extraordinary instruments of war. Ultimately, the fifth point underscores how the convergence of tactical innovation, human ingenuity, mechanical mastery, and psychological impact transformed the Sherman into a tiger-killing legend, providing suspenseful cinematic storytelling that immerses viewers in the drama, tension, and triumph of armored warfare, illustrating that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage, intelligence, and precision can redefine the battlefield, create awe-inspiring victories, and cement a lasting legacy that resonates far beyond any single battle and ensures that the story of the Sherman's metamorphosis into a lethal, precise, and fearsome adversary will continue to engage, thrill, and inspire audiences with its blend of suspense, tactical brilliance, and cinematic drama. As the war drew toward its final, most intense phases, the legacy of the gunner's impossible trick became fully evident, transforming not only the M4 Sherman itself, but the very nature of armored warfare, as tank crews applied years of accumulated experience, technical mastery, and battlefield insight to turn what was once considered a second-rate vehicle into a precision instrument of destruction capable of taking on Germany's most feared armored beasts. And it was in these moments that the drama, suspense, and ingenuity of the technique reached its peak, with crews maneuvering across shattered landscapes, bombed-out villages, and frost-choked fields, executing perfectly timed strikes on tiger tanks with near-superhuman precision, leveraging terrain, camouflage, angle of attack, ammunition choice, and coordination between driver, loader, commander, and gunner to exploit vulnerabilities in armor that had once seemed invulnerable, turning each engagement into a tense, almost cinematic confrontation where split-second decisions determined survival, victory, and morale, and every successful hit reinforced the psychological and tactical power of the Sherman, shifting perceptions among Allied and Axis forces alike, as German crews, once confident in their Tiger's supremacy, found themselves hesitating, adjusting tactics, and often withdrawing in the face of Shermans that struck with deadly precision from unexpected positions. A demonstration that intelligence, observation, and daring could overcome raw firepower, a lesson as psychologically profound as it was physically effective. Mechanics, engineers, and field commanders collaborated to perfect the method, analyzing the stresses placed on turrets, suspension systems, gun stabilizers, and ammunition feed mechanisms, implementing maintenance routines, procedural adjustments, and training programs that ensured the trick could be executed reliably under extreme conditions, while also passing knowledge to new crews so that the effectiveness of the method could scale across divisions, transforming what began as a single individual's daring improvisation into a reproducible, doctrinally significant capability, enabling units to engage heavier armor with confidence, extend operational range, and achieve objectives that had previously seemed out of reach, all while maintaining crew survivability and tactical flexibility. A convergence of human ingenuity, mechanical adaptation, and battlefield intelligence that epitomized the transformative power of innovation in warfare. The psychological dimension of the technique reached its zenith in these final engagements as crews internalized the method, executing maneuvers with almost instinctive coordination, reading enemy patterns, and calculating trajectories under the most intense pressure. While German crews, repeatedly witnessing Sherman's exploiting angles, terrain, and timing to devastating effect, experienced a profound shift in perception, recognizing that no armor, no matter how thick or feared, was invulnerable when faced with ingenuity, precision, and calculated risk. And this fear, hesitation, and uncertainty had strategic implications, altering decisions at both tactical and operational levels, forcing adversaries to adapt, react, and sometimes fail, underscoring the principle that psychological edge can be as decisive as physical superiority in combat. Cinematic battlefield accounts from this stage describe moments of breathtaking tension. Shermans emerging from concealed positions with near-perfect timing, Tigers caught off guard, shells striking weak points with deadly accuracy, smoke, dust, and fire enveloping the scene as crews executed every maneuver with intense focus and coordination. And the surrounding chaos contrasted sharply with the methodical, disciplined, and precise execution of the gunner's trick, producing moments of drama, suspense, and awe that would be recounted for generations. A narrative in which the ordinary became extraordinary through skill, observation, and courage, and where the stakes, life, death, and victory, were ever present, reinforcing the thrill, danger, and artistry of armored warfare. Strategically, the cumulative effect of the technique allowed Sherman units to accomplish disproportionately impactful results, reducing enemy armor effectiveness, achieving objectives with fewer resources, and enabling American forces to project power and dominance in regions where Tigers had previously held sway. A combination of tactical brilliance, mechanical reliability, and human ingenuity that reshaped battlefield dynamics, informed operational planning, and cemented the Sherman's reputation as a surprisingly lethal and versatile machine, demonstrating that innovation at the individual level could ripple through units and campaigns to produce lasting strategic effects. Ultimately, the gunner's impossible trick became more than a tactical maneuver. It became a symbol of audacity, ingenuity, and the capacity of human skill to redefine machinery, strategy, and perception, a legacy that endured beyond individual battles, inspiring future generations of armored crews, military innovators, and enthusiasts, and providing a suspenseful, cinematic conclusion to a story of tension, creativity, and triumph under fire, where a single Sherman, guided by the insight and daring of one gunner, could challenge the mightiest armor on the battlefield, turning the improbable into reality, instilling awe, fear, and respect, and leaving a dramatic, unforgettable testament to the power of precision, courage, and human ingenuity. A narrative that captivates audiences by blending danger, suspense, tactical brilliance, and the ultimate victory of intellect and skill over brute strength. ensuring that the legend of the M4 Sherman as a tiger killer, born from one gunner's impossible trick, will resonate in history, memory, and cinematic imagination for generations to come. And concluding with a pulse-pounding realization that in warfare, as in life, innovation, courage, and daring can turn the impossible into a spectacular, triumphant reality.